It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show, only on Secular Media Network.
Well, hello there, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and this, of course, is the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 185. We are in late summer, early fall of 2016, and I am so delighted that you could join me for this show. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is perhaps a little extra deep and gravelly. I'm fighting a cold and just spent 3 hours at the local clinic for them to tell me that I have a cold. Yay! I couldn't have figured that out on my own, but 3 hours it was, and during my 3 hours there, two of the people at the clinic were removed by stretcher with ambulance crews. So they were very busy, and apparently something's going on. So hopefully it's just a plain old cold, and a few days later I'll be back to my normal self. But the funny thing is, in a strange way, I don't feel like talking a whole lot. And that's generally a sign, at least to my wife, that I'm definitely sick. I don't want to talk. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter intro, I hope. And I want to cover a couple of things, and we'll do that. And then, of course, the interview a little bit later in the show is also a very nice and a little bit longer one with Candace Gorham. She has written a book about black women leaving the church, and has 10 different people telling their stories in this book. And I recommend that you buy it. Of course, I recommend that you listen to the interview. And I think that it is going to be great fun for you. So I don't mind being a little short myself. So I think I do have two topics that are related and that I'm going to cover. And like I said, hopefully keep it a little shorter today. One, I want to discuss probably the single... Oh, gosh, what did I say? The single question that people ask me when I give talks in person that I don't feel like I can give a good answer to. And so I'm going to share it with you and just kind of discuss why I can't give a good answer, or why I can't give a satisfying answer, I guess. The thing is, it's not that I don't have... Well, I don't have the information. But, all right, let me just go through from the beginning. I give a talk. When it's over, people ask me all kinds of questions. There's one question that people ask me, and they say, Phil, can you give me an average performance of all of your clients over the last 1, 3, 5, or 10 years? And I've heard this enough times, and I know how it's going to go, that I've developed this little routine for answering it. And I'll tell them, I said, well, I can give you a really short answer to that question if you'd like. And they go, yes, I'd like a really short answer. And I said, great. Okay, that's really easy. No. And they're not satisfied. I know they're not going to be satisfied. And they said, well, I can give you a little bit longer answer if you'd like. And they go, yeah, that'd be probably pretty good at this point. And I said, okay, the little bit longer answer is that it's nearly fucking impossible for me to calculate, and B, it actually has no real value to you whatsoever. Are you now satisfied? And they, of course, they say, no, that really didn't help me any. I said, well, would you like a longer answer? And they go, yeah, I think I would. So the first problem is calculating the returns. I do not have a basket of funds or a handful of portfolios, whether it's 5 or 10 or 30, that I take individual clients and put them into. If I did, I could look at the performance of those portfolios and say, here's the 10 different ways or the 12 different ways that I might invest your money, and I'll put you in one of these baskets. Not a basket of deplorables, but that kind of pops into my head. Look it up. Anyway, I could put you in one of those pre-designed funds, and if I did, I could either show you what the actual performance was from the date I created the fund, or I could use historical data, not necessarily back-tested data, because they would probably be index funds that I would use anyway, and I could show you what their track record was. Doesn't mean that I had people in them, but I could present you something. The problem with that is that every person has a different need, a different goal, a different agenda, a different desire, what we want to do with the money. Are they 30 or are they 80? Do they have a lot of money or do they have only $3,000? Do they need the money soon? Do they need the money later? Are they willing to take risk even when they're in retirement? And how much risk? And those are all long, drawn-out conversations. And each portfolio that I create for each client there's similarities, but they're unique. So if I mush all that data together, what does it tell you? I mean, it may not even apply to your situation and what your goals and desires are. The second problem is that is really, really, really hard to calculate. And it's actually beyond my mental capacity. I maybe could buy a program. I don't know. Because some clients add during the year. I mean, I get new clients. So that could change the numbers. If you add a whole bunch of people and the market goes up, it could skew the numbers upward if you do some kind of weight-based adjustment. Sometimes I do lose clients. It happens. And everyone's free to do that. It's a client of mine. No one's under any kind of contractual agreement to stay or keep hiring me. Thankfully, the number one reason that people leave me is they say that they've now learned enough and they want to go do it on their own. I'm honored by that. That doesn't bother me. But then sometimes people take out money because they're in retirement or they have a medical emergency and they have to take out money. Other people, most people, are adding money. So you've got to take all of that into account. And it becomes an incredibly, terribly, painfully laborious thing that I don't even know how to do. So that's the first part of the problem. The second thing is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't help you. And we've had shows where if you look at the best funds compared to the S&P 500 for 5 years, that information is not valuable. You think it is, and it should be. Well, wouldn't that be freaking nice? But the data shows that if you look at 1, 3, 5, or even 10-year performance, even 20-year performance, and then measure those funds going forward, that data has no value. It doesn't. It's nice to have because we like to have data, but it doesn't actually tell you what you're going to do. The one thing that I know that's consistent is that average mutual funds underperform index funds. And when the market goes up, if you're in index funds, you're going to make money. When it goes down, you're going to lose money. So these basic fundamental things and the way that I invest in index funds, whether they're stock or bond, domestic or international, they're going to track those indices. And you may make money, you may lose money. So what has happened over the last 1 or 3 or 5 years is not going to tell you what you're going to do in the next 1 or 3 or 5 years. It probably you're going to match those markets that you're in, and the allocation between those different markets might vary based on our conversations. So that's the real problem. And every time I've given that explanation, the person that's asked is still not satisfied and they want to go over it more. And I've decided that it just has to stay there. It just has to be that you're not satisfied with my answer. I don't know what else to tell you, because even if I could somehow come up with all the data that you want, it's not particularly valuable, and it's not going to help you decide how or where to invest. And the second topic that is related to this, I just recently found out that the SEC, which from time to time does actually pursue and investigate and fine investment advisors, recently issued a notice, and it's on their website. I'm trying to look it up here now as I talk. It is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission press release page. And this press release page is about companies, 13 investment advisory firms, like my business, Polaris Financial Planning, that just got slapped with fines. And the fines range into anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 per company. So it's about $1.5–2 million in total fines for these 13 companies. It's a lot of money. And it's definitely a list you don't want to be on, because when you talk to new prospective clients, you have to disclose this. So it's a very big problem for a business. And what they did was they were using an outside firm, what they call a money manager. And so when you hire the advisor, they don't do like I do, where they sit down and create a portfolio custom for you. They hire an outside firm. And this outside firm takes your money and they manage it. They're a money manager. That's what they do. The reason people in the industry use it, the reason investment advisors use it, is because it frees them up from the tedium of the day-to-day activity of having to advise you, having to figure out what you need and what you want, and then making the buys and selling and balancing your portfolio. All of the stuff that I actually like doing, they have someone else do that for them. Well, they were using a company that was promising results or was showing documented data about the results that they've achieved, and it turns out it wasn't as good as everyone thought. So I'm going to read a little bit here, and it might be painfully dry and boring, so forgive me, but I don't want to mischaracterize this. This is from an SEC document. It says, quote, "The SEC alleges that while marketing Alpha Sector into the largest active ETF strategy in the market, F Squared falsely advertised a successful 7-year track record for the investment strategy based on the actual performance of real investments for real clients," end quote. And so I got a couple things there. F Squared is one of the largest creators of ETFs in the world. And we've talked about ETFs a little bit, and an ETF is an exchange-traded fund, and it can be really, really similar to an index fund, although it can be very, very different from a mutual fund. And I'll have to do a whole nother show on that because we don't have time. And they had this new one called Alpha Sector, and it used a process called tactical investing, which we've talked about recently, where they create a scheme, a mathematical model that when they back test it over time says if we had run this starting X number of years ago, we would have made all this money. See how great this strategy is? And the short answer is back tested data, in my opinion, is completely worthless, completely meaningless for the same reason we've talked about funds, even with real data. They've done well for 5 years. You can't use that information to assume that they're going to do well for the next 5 years. It just doesn't work. And back-tested data has shown again and again and again that it doesn't work. It's just data. I mean, it's data mining for the skeptics that know this phrase. You look through enough data, you find something curious. You find that thing that's curious, and you start investing based on that curious thing. Well, guess what? Now it stops working. So back-testing data, in my opinion, has no value. So F Squared is the company. Alpha Sector is this new ETF that they created. And so let me go back to the letter here. Quote, "In reality, the algorithm was not even in existence during the 7 years of purported performance success. The data used in F Square's advertising was actually derived through back testing." End quote. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's back-tested data. It didn't actually exist. They're making these conjectures, and the big problem they got in here is that they told people that it was real data. And so the letter goes on. F Squared specifically advertised the investment strategy as not back-tested, end quote. So they actually didn't get in trouble for using back-tested data. They got in trouble for blatantly lying about it. Now, I'm a little conflicted because I think back-tested data is useless anyway, but if they had explained or disclosed that it was back-tested data, they probably would not have been fined. So if they had said that this data is back-tested, which you should know, but the average investor won't know, means that the data is meaningless, they would have been covered. They would have been fined, and they could have gone and sold it and made all the money that they made, and they would have dodged this fine from the SEC. But they didn't say it was back-tested. They implied and specifically promoted in their advertising that it was not back-tested data. So they didn't get in trouble for using back-tested data. They got in trouble for using back-tested data and not telling people, or telling people it specifically wasn't. And then I'm going to go on and finish this last part of the paragraph here. Quote, "Furthermore, the hypothetical data contained a substantial performance calculation error that inflated the results by approximately 350%. Yes, that's right, 350%. And as I dug into this a little bit, what the error was is the person that created this calculation took their model, and the model would indicate when the market went up and when it went down and things moved. It then said, what if we used the information that we have now? And now knowing that information, what if we took action on that the previous week? That's right. So data that you already have, data that's in the market, data that tells you the market went up or down, or that a specific sector did well or did poorly, you take that information you have today and you go and use it last week. No one can do that. Not one that I know of, unless you have a time machine. So this is why they got in trouble. It to me, it emphasizes the flawed process of tactical investing. It shows you that backtesting doesn't work, and that they had to game the system to make it look like it worked, and even then it's not valid, and then they had to lie to investors. All of that compounded and resulted in the advisors that used this getting fined, and the reason the advisors got fined, and of course F squared is being fined too, that's another issue, but the advisors got fined because they should have known. They have a responsibility, if they are acting as a fiduciary, to investigate the claims being made before they present them to the clients. That's why the advisors got slapped on this. And so that is one of the big differences between someone who provides suitable investment advice and someone who acts as your fiduciary. They have a legal obligation, and here is an example, a legal obligation to do what is in your best interest, and they have a legal obligation to investigate the claims of what they tell you can happen or did happen with the investments that they're recommending. So anyway, that went way longer than I expected, so we're just going to go right into the interview, and hopefully I see you out on the road somewhere, and I'll talk to you another time.
Only on Secular Media Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. And my very special guest today is the author of a book called The Ebony Exodus. Actually, it's the Ebony Exodus Project. Subtitle, Why Some Black Women Are Walking Out on Religion and Others Should Too. And joining me today is Candace Gorham. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. And of course, I love that your book is also an audio, because I could pay $12 and have someone read it to me.
And it was me. I read it to you, actually.
You read it to me, and I tell you what, I could hear you. And matter of fact, I think, how many women did you profile in the book?
10.
I think about 4 of them I know pretty well.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you do.
So that was kind of nice, but it also has a very different perspective because of the people's stories, and you're quoting them, and you're talking in their voice, and you're talking in your voice. And I'll tell you what, I'll just make it really clear for the listeners, it's not Phil's voice. I'm about as pasty white, old white dude as it gets, and you are not.
Yeah, but your voice sounds great, though. You've got the nice radio vibe going.
Oh, you're very sweet. That's the magic of electronics. In person, I sound like Pee Wee Herman.
Whatever.
Actually, it might be a little bit better today because I think I'm fighting a case of bronchitis, so it might make it a little more raspy.
Oh. Well, raspy is sexy, though.
There you go. Well, I'm just not going to go to the doctor at all now.
Well, I don't think you should.
I'm not.
No. Please still go.
I'm not going to go to the doctor if you think it's that sexy. I might have to go down where you are.
Well, you let me read to you on your way to bedtime, on your way to sleep, didn't you? You like laying in the bed, listening to my voice.
That's right. I've got the audiobook on my phone, and I can turn it on and hear you swear.
Yes.
So why don't you let's start with your story and your experience with religion. How'd that all come about? What were you raised?
Okay, so that's always the big long question.
Yeah, we got time.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
We have lots of time.
Oh, okay, lots of time. So my earliest that I remember was Jehovah's Witness. My dad was a Jehovah's Witness, and so, we went to the Kingdom Hall. We did all of that. We did the in-home studies. I was little, so I didn't go out and do any of the door-to-door stuff, but my dad used to. He was pretty serious about it. My mom wasn't necessarily a fan, but he was pretty serious about it.
Yeah.
And when they separated when I was about 9, I want to say. And so once they separated, my mom wasn't going to make us continue to go. She wasn't really feeling it anyway. And the interesting thing was that I, in like 4th grade or 5th grade, around that age, I decided I wanted to continue to study. So, a family that was doing, door-to-door stuff, when I just happened to open the door this particular day, and I'm like, yeah, I want to continue to study. So here I am at, 9 or 10 years old. My mom ain't studying. My parents weren't together. I didn't really see my dad a lot at that time. My brother and my sister weren't studying, but I was still sitting here studying. So all of my friends thought I was crazy. They were like, what in the world? Why are you going home after school to like study the Bible? I was like, I don't know. It was good to me, And so we did that for a little while. And then when I got into middle school, I would say, I guess about the 7th grade or so, I started going to church with some of my cousins. And it was like my dad's, like the family church, the church that he was raised in, grandma, all my aunts and uncles. So it's the family church, and a big chunk of the family actually still goes there even to this day. It was United Methodist. So I started going with my aunt. She would take me, and I got all into that. Of course, I was in the choir, and I was confirmed in the Methodist church. I was baptized or sprinkled. Of course, that doesn't count, but I was sprinkled.
Yeah.
And gosh, I don't know. I mean, I went to the Bible studies. I went to shut-in stuff because I spent a lot of time with my aunt, and she was very, very, very religious. She was like my second mom for a while. And it was pretty much, if she wasn't at work, she was at church. And so I was with her.
Well, I also, I grew up Methodist.
Oh.
And I learned when I was in Arkansas for a while that Methodists don't really count because they're not really Christian enough.
Exactly. Well, what's funny is, okay, so the church is way out in the country, and I mean, well, now the way things are, it's not really the country anymore, but
right.
Back then, it was nice and rural country. And not far down the road, around the corner, was a Methodist church that was a predominantly white church. So we considered ourselves to be like sister churches, and sometimes we go to their special events, and sometimes they would come to ours. And even though we were a Methodist church, of course, when you think Methodist, you think, hymns and, just real structure and just pretty basic. Well, I mean, mine was a black Methodist church. So
right.
We had a little bit of extra flavor on our stuff. And
no mayonnaise?
I'm sorry?
No mayonnaise?
Nah, no mayonnaise. Special sauce. We had special sauce. Yep. Pickles, lettuce. It was really, they did gospel choir songs, popular stuff that was on the radio. They, once in a while, you'd have somebody would jump up and shout. That was rare, but once in a while, somebody would. So our sister church, predominantly white sister church, would come to our services, and they just ate it up. They just ate that shit up. They thought it was the most amazing thing in the world that this Methodist church, these people were still, had all of this soul and energy and whatever.
Well, that's great. And I'm guessing you're not Methodist now, right?
I am not. No, not anymore.
And what happened? Did you take that darn Bible too seriously?
I did. I did. Well, see, it gets worse than that, though. So like in high school, my sister married a minister. And he was a evangelical, prosperity gospel, that type of minister. So I got into that. And I got ordained, and I got really serious. I went off to college and was still involved in the church in college. And basically I was ordained as an evangelist at one point. So I was out in the streets, knocking on people's doors, going door to door. I was ordained as a prophetess. So, of course I could prophesy. I could prophesy to you right now, I actually feel.
Let's do that. Prophesy for me. What does that mean? Yeah, talk to me.
Let's see. Okay, well, I got to talk to you a little bit more because I got to be able to understand your spirit. You see, I got to really be able to feel Yeah, because the Lord, He'll speak to me in a minute. He'll speak. He just ain't moving yet.
What you just break out whenever you think it's right.
Hallelujah, amen, brother. I'll do that. So anyway, so that church was where it got extreme because we believed in casting out demons and, fasting. We fast for 5, 6, 7, 8 days at a time.
I thought you were going to say like 5, 6 hours. God, that would be rough for me.
I wish hours. No, gosh, yeah, it was terrible too. And this wasn't like you could still sip fruit juice fast. This was water. Period. That's it.
No thanks.
Yeah, it was rough though. It was rough, bro. I'm telling you. And so that one was that one. And my sister and her husband ended up moving to California. So when they moved, we started going to another non-denominational church, but it was heavy on the prosperity gospel side and not so much on the evangelical. They still believed in like demons and stuff, and they would shout, but they weren't like casting out demons in the service, but oh man, we did some crazy stuff with, when it comes to casting out demons and I would lay hands on you. I could like command the demons to leave. I did all of that.
You actually did that. And when you were doing it, you thought that was real.
Oh yeah, of course.
So you weren't faking it till you making it. You actually believed it.
I actually believed it. Yes. No, I was a believer. There was no doubt in my mind that what I was saying and doing, was real and legitimate. So
could someone ever be sick because they had a demon? Could that be a cause for an illness?
That was pretty much always the cause. Yeah.
You don't need a doctor. Like you need a prophetess, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You needed somebody to cast the demon out. Like you right now feel, I hear the Lord telling me right now, the reason that you coming down with bronchitis is because you use your voice to spread evil lies about him.
Oh man, he's getting me bad now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm feeling it.
So what would the ceremony be to get rid of this demon?
Okay, that's the best part. So the ceremony to get rid of the demon first, you have to come up, you get prayed for. We'll lay our hands on you. We'll tell you what your demon is. Have a little bit of conversation about what's going on in your life.
Is the demon like Demon Bob or something?
Well, some of them. Well, it would be like a demon of lust or a demon of.
He or she doesn't have an actual name.
Well, they never did reveal their names to us. Let me say that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So no names that I know of. So the way that demons they passed through people and moved around the world was through, or the way to get it out was like you had to cough because it would come out something about the air because, God breathed life. And, that's how people came to life because he breathed into them. So
I do have a little bit of a cough building. Is that must be another sign?
It may be that the truth of God right now is trying to force that demon out of you, and that's why you're coughing.
All right. Well, I'm going to cancel my appointment to go to the doctor tomorrow. I don't need an antibiotic or cough medicine. I just need some laying on of hands.
There we go. See, so we could do by like video Skype or something. I could pray for you right now, and the demon to come right on out.
Are you serious? Is that a real thing?
What?
That you can get a demon out of somebody by Skype?
Well, I guess theoretically, yeah.
Is there an extra fee for that?
Extra what?
Extra fee?
Well, no. We'll do the Skype ones for free because actually what you'll end up doing is just making your donation by PayPal. You got to use because of your
and so how long were you involved with this kind of stuff?
Let's see, gosh, up until my mid-20s. I mean, real heavy, I would say a good, of the actual casting out demons and all of that stuff, I would say maybe about 4 years or so. Yeah. pretty
and
long.
So you said up
long
until your
amount of time.
mid-20s, and you're what, 30 now?
I'm in my mid-30s now, yeah.
Ah, I see.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not religious now.
Nope.
What happened? What did you fall and hit your head? I mean, did something terrible happen? How did you lose your faith in God?
Right. So, of course, contrary to popular belief, you know, I believe a lot of atheists say this now, but we continue to have to fight this belief that we left church because we were hurt or we were angry at God or
Right.
something right like that. Right. No, not for me at all. I was actually trying to get closer to God. A bunch of really bad, nasty, ugly stuff was happening to me all at the same time. You know, like I said, my husband at the time, we went to church, 5-6 nights a week. We were both, I was in the choir. He was a musician. We went to Bible study. I mean, we were trying to follow this thing by the book, right? We were paying our tithes. We were paying our offerings. Don't tell anybody that I said this, Phil, but we even paid tithes on our student loan checks.
What?
Don't tell nobody. Right?
You owe
Yes.
debt, and as you're paying back your debt, you pay some more to the church.
I'm still. Well, I gave it. Yeah. I mean, whatever the refund check was.
The
you get your
refund.
refund
Okay.
check.
That's good. Now, what happens if you win the lottery?
You would have to pay your tithes on that as well. Yeah, if it was $10 million, you got to get a church $1 million.
Now, what if you win at the horse races? Is that allowed?
Well, so there we could have some conversation around whether or not gambling is allowed, but it's money, so you better still pay your 10%.
Because God will know, right?
Right, we're not going to turn down the money now,
So
yeah.
you're going up the ranks and you're becoming famous and laying on of hands and you're a prophetess and you've got a direct connection to God, and now you don't.
Yeah. Well, no, I still have my connection. I was just trying to figure out how to make it better.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I just said, right, I'm paying tithes on my student loans. In the meantime, my car was repossessed,
Ooh.
I'm trying to get my house out of foreclosure, right? I mean, the world was falling apart. I was severely depressed. I was suicidal. I mean, it was bad. It was a really, really dark, ugly time in my life. And so I'm going, well, what the fuck? I'm doing everything that I think I can do. So, God, I must be doing something else wrong. Where am I missing it? So I say, I'm going to study even more. I'm going to study even harder. I'm going to read I had already read the Bible all the way through. I was a minister. I preached. I read the Bible. But I thought I must be missing something, something's not. So I go back, I study. And eventually, I just studied myself right on out of it. Like I remember one of the earliest topics that I kind of focused on a lot was hell. For some reason, I don't know why that became something that attracted me immediately. So I was studying about hell, and I started learning about the different words that the Bible uses that we have now translated to hell, like Gehenna and Hades and Tartarus and all of those, or whatever that one is.
Sure.
And how we have, Christianity has interpreted them as the fiery place of torment. But then when you actually go back and study the words, like what that Greek word means or what that, Hebrew word means, it wasn't fiery places of torment. It was, other different things. And so that sort of started me on this path of being like, well, what else am I missing? So, of course, I went through the whole, the problem was biblical translation. Then it was, okay, God is still real. Jesus is still real. So as long as I love God, as long as I love Jesus, I'm okay. Then I started learning about how the Christ figure is not unique to Christianity, right? So then it becomes, okay, well, I don't know about Christianity, but God is still real. So I'm still, so you see where it goes, right? It slowly drifted its way all the way to, and I remember one day, I don't know what I was doing, But I kind of had this thought of, I pretty much live my life as if there is no God. I take no interest in him whatsoever. He apparently takes no interest in me whatsoever. So I might as well just go all the way with this thing and just say, I don't believe this bullshit anymore. I'm an atheist, and.
Well, it's amazing to me because it seems like in so many ways, not only is the church not helpful, it's harmful. You get sick and you don't get proper medicine. You get bad medicine or non-medicine. And if you don't get better, it might be because you're doing something wrong. You're paying more and more money to the church, and you lose your car. You might lose your home. And the church is not helping. Matter of fact, it's hurting you because the little bit of money that you had is disappearing.
Exactly.
And how's the preacher doing during all this? Is he able to pay his bills?
Oh, with the second church I went to, that was the Prosperity Gospel, that pastor, he was so well off. He did not allow people to visit his home. He only allowed like his highest ministers to visit his home because he didn't want anybody to know what it looked like.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
He would not release the church financial records to, he wouldn't make them public to the members. No. And then on top of all of that, he would say, if you're not living like me, then you're doing something wrong. It's
your fault.
And actually, that's part of what, kickstarted I must be doing something wrong because I'm not living like my pastor, but I'm doing all of the shit that he's telling me to do. So what the hell is happening? So that's actually what pushed me towards that. Let me study some more. I must be doing something wrong.
I think he's got a point, though. You should live like him, and you should have him give 10% to you.
That would have been awesome. He drove they had a BMW, Escalade, Harley. He used to brag all the time about how his bedroom door opens to the pool at his house, and how he would just swim buck naked, just get up out of the bed and could just jump buck naked into the pool right outside of his bedroom door. Like, that's the kind of stories he would tell us.
Once told me in certain neighborhoods, the people who are driving the best cars are either drug dealers or ministers. You ever heard something like that?
I have, exactly. Yes. That's so funny. You've heard that. Yeah, that's what people out say all the time.
That's amazing. What I want to do is let's take a quick break, and you and I will just be quiet for 10 seconds while the listeners get 4 minutes of commercials, and we're going to come back and talk about the book. You okay with that?
I'm down.
All right, hang on, and we'll be right back.
Here's an excerpt from Mum, Dad, I'm an Atheist by David G. McAfee.
It is the same highly regarded concept of an afterlife that allows misguided religious people to justify the mistreatment of those who disagree with their religious ideologies. They are simply trying to protect you from eternal damnation in the afterlife by condemning you, insulting you, and even disowning you in this life. It is not to say that becoming open about your disbelief is always going to be met with these negative reactions, and, in fact, that is precisely what this work is hoping to prevent. But it is important to understand that if you experience negative reactions from religious kin, it is probably a result from the religion's teachings, and likely not from any personal vendetta or hatred.
Mom, Dad, I'm an Atheist by David G. McAfee is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
This is Phil Ferguson with Polaris Financial Planning, the home of science-based investing. I see people owning really bad investments all of the time. Many advisors are paid a commission by a big company to sell you something you may not need. It's kind of like church. They create fear, then they tell you what you want to hear, and then they take your money. What you want is an advisor that is paid only by you. That is a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Remember, people work for who they are paid by. You can contact me, Phil, at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com, or listen to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. Each show, we have an interesting investing skeptically topic and an interview with someone fighting to end religion. Polaris also gives 10% of gross revenue to support the growing secular movement. You're not just getting better investments, you're helping to change the world. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are still listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. And of course, Candace is with me here, and we just waited like 5 minutes, right, for that commercial to end.
Gosh, it took forever.
I know it seemed like it would never end. Hopefully, the listeners aren't thinking that, but you've got this.
You need to do like Hulu, and then offer the. You pay a little bit of extra, so you get to skip the commercials and stuff.
Yeah, I could do that. Matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned it. What I have right now is I'm doing a fundraiser for American atheists.
Oh, cool.
And if my listeners give, because last week I had David Silverman on, if my listeners give $1,500 to American atheists, and they can go to atheists.org/Phil, and you give money there, and as soon as that hits 1,500, I'm going to match it and put in another 1,500. How's that sound?
So I gotta give 1,500 per person.
No. In total. So if you want, you're
starting to sound like a minister.
That's
Are
right.
you sure?
That's right. You know what? We're now going to do a silent collection. I don't want any coins.
Right. Exactly.
That's right. And then we're going to have a love offering. And then we're going to have a seed offering. And then on top of that, we're going to have Phil needs a new fucking G6 offering.
Look, what do you know about the love offering and the... yeah, man. How do you know all of those?
Well, I study religion, and it kind of started out with the idea that this is silly, and maybe if I study it some more, it'll make sense. No, it never happens. and the more I study it, the more fascinated I am. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that the more I learn about it, the more of a mind fuck that I think it is. And you and I think will agree, and I'm pretty sure because I just listened to the whole damn book that we're going to talk about. But, Kamara? Is that his name?
Jeremiah Kamara, yeah.
Jeremiah Kamara. Someone told me that I had to watch his movie, and they hooked me up with him, and he sent me a copy, and I set it by my my DVD player for like 3 months. And then one day the Spirit, lifted me up, and I pulled off the cellophane. I was real strong and just ripped it right off.
Just ripped it off.
And I played that movie, and I emailed him immediately, and I said, dude, you must come on my show. So like a year ago, he was on my show. And your book talks about some of the same stuff where it keeps you down. It keeps you oppressed. And the beautiful thing is it keeps you oppressed, and you don't even know that you're oppressed, and you're being oppressed by the thing that you think is going to drag your ass out of the bad neighborhood, out of being broke, out of being poor, out of not having education. And when you finally make money, you give it to somebody.
Exactly.
So how did this idea for the book come up?
I'm sorry?
How did you come up with the idea for the Ebony Exodus Project book?
Let's see. Good Lord. So there's a really long story there too. But basically when I was deep in the church still, I used to have this idea, this crazy, borderline blasphemous idea that we needed to focus our attention on like living and surviving in the real world as well as, church and God and Bible and all that shit. So I had this idea even when I was still a minister, I was going to write a book, and I was going to call it Jesus is All You Need and Other Lies the Church Tells You.
Oh, damn.
Right? I was a minister.
Wow.
And so, I kept that title like real super secret because my point was, like I said, I started suffering, had a severe struggle with depression. And I know I thought about when I first started seeing a therapist, when I first started taking medication and stuff, I was so embarrassed about it because I believed that it meant that I didn't have enough faith. And so I didn't want people to know that I was taking an antidepressant. The only people who knew was my mom and my husband. And I was very forceful with both of them that if they were to ever tell any motherfucker that I was taking pills.
My wife has had bipolar for a long time. And when she first started taking medicine, we were in Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, which is nothing quite like what you went to. But they actually did have people there tell her that she would be better off not taking the medicine and just getting, what is it, get right with God, what is it,
Yeah.
let God let go?
Let God let go. Let go and let God.
Yeah, okay, see? Let go and let
Yeah.
God, and then they'll take care of everything.
Exactly. So I had this book idea, and like I said, basically, I mean, I still wanted to tell people like, hey, love God and stuff, but at the same time, I felt like I wanted to say, but still exercise, but still eat healthy, because I felt like the church didn't really, didn't focus enough on those, and even sometimes would discourage some of that stuff. It'd be better for you to be in the church than for you to go to the gym, for example. Wow. So so I wanted to write that book to tell people, hey, like, we got to do better. And once I became an atheist, a non-believer, and moved away from all of that stuff, I started, thinking about the same stuff again, and how I was struggling with depression. And so the book now is sort of a flip of that, right? That these are the struggles that you have. These are the things that we go through, that we deal with. And the church actually not only is it not helping, but it's making it worse.
And so you have the stories of 10 different women.
Yes.
And the struggles they've gone through, and there's a lot of themes in common. And one of them that I noticed very, very, very important to almost all of these women was sexual repression, sexual oppression, and they weren't allowed to be themselves. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. There are several women in the book who are lesbian and bisexual, and of course, all of them, they felt like they had issues with that coming out. Just some of them dealt with guilt from being told that being gay, being a lesbian is wrong. Some of them, even if they kept it to themselves, they sort of tortured themselves because they felt like they knew, finger quotations, they knew it was wrong, but they, couldn't get over the urges. So you had that. And then there were several people who, I know there was at least one person, I'm thinking through everybody, there's at least one person who was like either raped or molested. And she talks about how she dealt with guilt for a long time, as a child, like as a small child. And so she dealt with a lot of guilt for a long time because she was dirty. Now, she was no longer a virgin and she wasn't married. So,
wow.
God wasn't going to be happy with her. And she dealt with that, just, every shade of guilt, of shame, of anger, that you can think of. Of course, there was the, if I masturbate under the blanket, then, Jesus can't see me. So I shouldn't be, there were those sorts of struggles, trying to deal with all of this stuff and trying to figure out how to not feel guilty and dirty about it. But so many, talked about feeling dirty, feeling just, in the book, of course, you got the interviews and that sort of edited conversation, but, most of them, there's way more conversation that I couldn't make it into the book,
Right.
And it was a big issue. Sexuality is a huge issue.
The other thing I enjoyed, and most of my listeners I think do, although I've upset a few people, the book does not edit out profanity.
Oh, fuck no. Why the fuck I'm going to take all the profanity out? That's the best shit in the motherfucker, right?
That comes up every once in a while. Someone's talking about how terrible everything is, and then all of a sudden, and I could still hear it because it was your voice going, bitch, please. I can't do it the same way you do it, but,
Yeah, I remember that, actually. We laughed about that when actually as we were recording, we were like, I tried it like several different ways, and we of course decided on the more dramatic one.
Yeah, I mean, it really sticks with me, and it's nice. I mean, I know a teeny little bit about how the experience is different for African Americans, but not so much because I didn't live that community. I grew up in a very, very, very white world. and I live in still bubbles today, but I'm trying. And it's a book that I think a lot of my listeners who know nothing about the situation and know nothing about how hard it is really, really should read this book, listen to this book. Again, it's called The Ebony Exodus Project. And one of the things that was talked about in the book a couple times, another topic, is that if you leave religion, I don't know if I'll phrase this right, so forgive me, you're kind of like Uncle Tom.
Oh, yeah. Like, this sort of along the lines that, non-believers, atheists and stuff, that's a white man thing. Black people don't do that. But then just, you're definitely a pariah. You in the early, I think most of the people in the early stages of their, like, going into their non-belief, it was very much a secret. You didn't tell people, you didn't let your coworkers know, you didn't let your family know, because you would get the looks. Like I said, you become a pariah, you become an outcast. And, at worst, you become, like you said, a Uncle Tom, for following along with some white people shit, Now,
so when this happens, do people tell a friend first? Are they scared to tell family? I mean, do people lose family members? Have you lost any connections with people because you aren't religious?
Me personally,
yeah.
I have. Yeah, absolutely. Several. And I know one in particular, I don't know 100% that was the reason. But this was one of my all-time best high school friends. She and I were always in contact. That we were great, right? And we connected on Facebook. I went away to college, so I kind of fell out of touch with home friends, right? And we reconnected on Facebook. We were cool. We were interacting on Facebook. Then once I started to become more vocal about my non-belief or more, what's the word I want to say, critical of the church, and I knew she had become very religious, and she was married with her family, and they went to church all the time, and she was always posting, Jesus memes. She disappeared one day. She completely disappeared, and if I try to search for her, to this day, if I were to try to search for her, she wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to find her. So, I felt like, I don't know what else that could be, because we were cool up until, I started talking. But there are other people who have been very explicit that, I'm a demon, I'm demonic. My whole thing was to, suck people in by when I was a super duper Christian, and then I flipped the script and became an atheist. But I was really an atheist all along. I was just trying to suck people in.
Yeah, you could have never been a real Christian and have the truth and know Jesus and have him in your heart, and then now say you're an atheist. So you're obviously a liar. Exactly.
Yeah, I was a liar. I was filled with demons. And then there are other experiences where, for example, a family reunion or something, suddenly the hugs seem to be a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. People they kind of wave and say, hey, and keep walking. So, there's some of that sort of passive aggressive, microaggression type stuff, And then I've had people just straight up tell me, like, on Facebook, you are, what was one person said that, because I was cussing a lot, and he made a comment about how much he was like, what happened to your relationship with God? You need to get right with God. And then somebody else commented and was like, yeah, you are, very profane or something. Another person said something real nasty. It's been a few issues here and there, but
is that language thing? Is that because you're not in your place?
What do you mean when I'm cussing?
Yeah, when you're cussing and you're not. Oh, that was the other theme in the book for a lot of the women. They weren't being submissive.
Ah, yeah. Oh man, that was a huge one when the church where I was a minister. Oh God, that was such a big deal, and the minister, the pastor, also my brother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Was just huge on this submission stuff. And it made for awkward conversation between my sister and I, actually, because we would, between my sister and me, right?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Whichever,
I had to fix that.
I'm not a grammar person, so whatever you want to say, I don't give a fuck.
I'm a grammar person. Let's see. Yeah. So it made for awkward conversation between the two of us, right?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, we would both want to vent about our husbands, but then on the other hand, it was, we couldn't say but so much, because our words could, bring about bad things, so if we were saying bad things and bad things happened to us, then that was because we said bad things, or if our husbands didn't change in the way that we wanted them to, it was because we were bad mouthing them. So it was sort of this awkward balancing act between the two of us. Of how do we vent to each other? How do we be sisters, and talk shit about our husbands, and also still be faithful or whatever. I mean, and the submission was everywhere. And that was just spouses. I mean, it was a big deal about submitting to, obviously you got to submit to the minister. I mean, everywhere. It was oftentimes it was a woman submitting to a man in most ways. That one was huge.
Yeah, I remember that coming up a lot. And so, I'm looking at this, and you've got trouble with medicine and demons and possession. You've got trouble with money, and the church is not helping you out with money. It's not teaching you about money. It's taking your money. It's telling women in particular they have to be submissive. They have to obey their man. They can't be with another woman, and they can't even pleasure themselves. That's all bad. What's the upside? I mean, social gatherings. I mean, hang out with friends. The
right.
Music, right?
Well, no, seriously though, that is a big deal, because that's where everybody was, right?
And it makes it harder to get out when all your family, all your friends are going to some church somewhere, and now you're the pariah, or like they said in the book, you're the Jezebel. You're a problem, and you're trying to ruin the black community, and you're not black enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're not black enough. That's a good way. Yeah, that, like I said, that's where the you're not black enough if you're a non-believer. Right. Now, if you still believe in God, but you just aren't going to church, then that's different, because you still believe in God, obviously.
Now in some of these churches, what percentage is men in the congregation?
I wish we knew those statistics. I really do. I wish I knew them better. I know that, gosh, didn't I reference a statistic in there? You read it more recently than I have. But
I do remember a story where you were talking about one of the congregations had mostly women, and some woman brought her husband in, and the minister laid into him in front of the entire congregation that he hadn't been there for several months.
Yes. And you know what? That has happened. I've seen that. I've seen that in every church that I've ever been to, just about. That a man shows up, and he gets fussed at because his wife is at church, his family are at church, and he's supposed to be the head of his household, but he's not there being the head. So, if your marriage is falling apart, then it's your fault. You should be in, you need to get in church and all of this, that,
and I'm sure you figured out that if I went to a church and I got called out from the pulpit and someone was bitching about me not being there often enough, you know what I'm going to do in reaction to that?
Not come back.
Not come back.
And that's if you don't stand up and cuss them out first, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that was I think that, I mean, it's obviously, I guess anecdotally, right, there's one thing, but I believe if the statistics would show that the church is mostly made of men. I mean, well, the statistics show that women are more religious than men, right? Higher percentages, they're the percentages are higher for women, when it comes to believing in God, when it comes to, being an active participant. And that's true for like across the board, Black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women. We do tend to be more, at least active. I'll say active, right?
Right.
Yeah, and actually I've been asking a lot of men that as I'm working on my current project, just about the men and the women, pretty much everybody that I've interviewed for this upcoming project. I want to know just, what are some of the theories about why there are so many more women in the church than men.
Now you said an upcoming project. You going to write a new book or what?
I am writing a new book, yes.
Oh my goodness.
I'm hoping, oh my gosh, I'm hoping that it'll be out next year. It's going to be out now. I'm going to speak it into existence. That's another thing. Yeah, I'm believing I'll be able to get it out next year. Yep.
Now, of course, the question is when someone, especially a Black woman or a Black man, leaves their church, I know the answer, of course, but my listeners probably do. Well, some of them will too. But where do they go? Are there any atheist groups, Black atheist groups? Where do they go? Oh,
well, where do they go initially? Is that a can you tell them where they should go?
I mean,
or is
just in case, I'm assuming my audience skews very white, but I know I have a big diversity. I get emails from people all around the world. So I know I have some African-American listeners or that are interested, and maybe they're listening to the show. They don't know where to go. Tell them where to go.
So the main thing, I believe everybody that I interviewed, their connection started on Facebook. That is just the platform for this right now. Everybody. Now, of course, there are more organizations that you can, once upon a time, you Google like Black atheists or whatever, and nothing really came up. But now, you got Black non-believers with Mandisa Thomas in Atlanta, and that has branched out, and there are multiple Black non-believers chapters around the country. So that's a very active place to start. You have the American Humanist. How do you say that?
American Humanist Association?
Yes, American Humanist Association recently started a new subdivision, which is African American Humanist. So that's still new. That's kind of getting up off the ground, but that's there. I'm trying to think what a lot of meetup. Meetup is a big one. What I found too, and a lot. I hear this a lot as well. That when Black, fresh, brand new baby atheists try to, connect to a community, they find, they end up going to white events, right? They get to something and it's mostly white people there. But I tell people go anyway. You know what I'm saying? I got you. You might not want to be around a bunch of white people. I don't know, right? Maybe you don't feel like you're making the connection there or whatever. But that's where it started for me. Facebook was where my, mental and spiritual and, all of that stuff started for me. Revolution started. But in terms of actually connecting to real people, I went to events, and lo and behold, there were actually a couple of Black people, in those groups. And so that's where I actually made my first real in-person connections was, it was the Triangle Free Thought Society in my area, which is a chapter of Freedom from Religion.
Right. I know lots of members there.
Yeah. So that would be a thing. You could go find out what local chapters of Black non-believers or Freedom from Religion, or, find out what kind of organizations are in your area. And even if it seemed like they're predominantly white, organizations, still go, because there's probably another Black person thinking there's no Black people here, So go socialize, meet some people in real life, because that's the stuff that's really gonna I think a lot of I had the experience. A lot of the women that I interviewed had the experience as well, that you deconvert, you become a non-believer, you become an atheist or whatever, or you're on that path, you're questioning, and you get scared, you get nervous, you want to go back, something ain't right, you want to go back to something familiar. And I believe that the education, the studying for yourself, studying this stuff for yourself is a big part of how to not go back into that mental and emotional oppression, to sort of study and know why you're giving up religion. And then the human connection, I know a lot of atheists, talk, we sort of, talk about how it's hard to really know how many atheists are out there because we all stay home on Sundays, whereas Christians and other religions, they fill up parking lots.
That's absolutely right. Now, you were worried that you might not talk long enough, but we're running out of time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
I'll talk forever if you don't stop.
It's fantastic, and we'll have to do that at some conference. Matter of fact, are you going to go to the American Atheist Conference next summer? It's in, I think it's in South Carolina, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I have the thing hanging on my refrigerator. I'm very much hoping to go. Yes,
yeah, the American Atheists scheduled a full solar eclipse for the conference.
What? That's so awesome.
Yeah, the conference ends on Sunday afternoon, and then you all go outside, and you get to see a full, total solar eclipse.
Wow. I love solar eclipse. I love all kind of astronomy stuff. I'm excited.
We'll have to talk about that. And hopefully you can come back when your new book gets ready to come out.
I most certainly hope to. And then I'll read it to you again.
I love it. I look forward to it. Candace, once again, thanks for coming on the Phil Ferguson Show. And for all the listeners, the book is The Ebony Exodus Project in all good bookstores. Go buy it. Matter of fact, Amazon only has 17 left, so maybe all my listeners can rush out and clean out the inventory there at the warehouse. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you. I had a good time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show on Secular Media Network.
I do hope you enjoyed that interview. I know I sure had a great time, and we were wondering if we'd get past 15 or 20 minutes, and it was almost 50, so I'm delighted that went so well. The last thing for today's show, I've got 2 more reviews for you from iTunes, and if there's any other platform that has a reviews section like iTunes, please let me know. I'd love to see what they are or promote those sites so people can give me reviews, of course. Just got 2, I think, today. The first one is from Thor Go Lucky. Nice title, Thor Go Lucky. Important financial advice to heed and interesting interviews to thanksies. Thankies, I think. I think that's how I should read that. Thankies. The second one is from Kikili, Kikily, Kikily, cleverly titled. The review is called Skeptical Investing. It says, I stumbled across this show by accident. It combines 2 themes centric to my life, finance, and secular beliefs. I'm so turned off by Dave Ramsey and his churchy impositions that I can't hear the financial message he conveys. Some good news, some completely ludicrous. Tithing, for one. Let's pay the criminals to rip us off more. By the way, end quote, that he's talking about Dave Ramsey, not me, right? Dave Ramsey. Back to the quote, Phil does a great job opening our eyes to the fleecing of Americans by financial institutions and religious ones. Keep up the good work, Phil. Really enjoy the shows, end quote. Well, thanks. You guys are way too sweet. Of course, if you like the show. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'm so glad that we have this little segment together. I am still doing a fund drive at atheists.org. I was hoping to get the numbers for today. I don't know how much has been raised, but it's probably never going to be enough. But if you can go to atheists.org/Phil, you can donate there. They said that they're going to get me the number here soon. I asked for it really late last night, so that's my fault. Hopefully I'll have next week the total that's been donated. You can go donate $20, $10, $50. You can go donate thousands and thousands of dollars, whatever you want. And when all of my listeners or whoever finds this page donates $1,500 to American Atheists, I will double it, and I will throw in my own $1,500. We did this a few months back for the Secular Student Alliance, and now we're doing it for American Atheists. Really love the work that they're doing. And it's one of those things that if you listen to the show, or if you've sent me an email and I've responded to you, and if I haven't, my apologies, please send it again, or you've called me and we've talked, if you've gotten some kind of value out of that, you don't have to pay me. It's freaky, I know. I don't have a Patreon. I'm good. My business is successful, and the show is the shameless self-promotion for the business. And that's how the model works. But if you've got some value and you have a secular mindset, go donate somewhere. And if you want to send me an email that says that you did it and thanks, or you donated it in my name or donated it in the name of the show, that's fine too. You don't have to, but if you do it for American Atheists right now, atheists.org/Phil, as soon as that total gets to 1,500, I'll match it. So we're going to wrap up the show. I think I've gotten over my hour here once again, but that's all right. We're having fun, and we'll talk to you in the near future. Ciao.